The desert wind carried with it the smell of dust, sweat, and something else: loneliness. It was the kind of loneliness only the frontier could carve into a soul, sharp as a knife and heavy as the saddle a man carried each morning. At the edge of a small, forgotten town, a woman stood by the crooked fence of the livery stable. Her dress was faded, her hair loose and tired from too many nights of worry. In her arms clung a girl no older than 8, with wide eyes that had seen more than a child ever should. They didn't belong there, not in this dying town where hope was nothing more than a whisper in the saloon and dreams died, faster than crops under the burning sun. The townsfolk passed them by with lowered heads, some with pity, others with suspicion. No one stopped. No one offered a hand, because in the West, everyone carried their own burdens, and no one dared to carry another's. But one man noticed. He leaned against the post outside the saloon, hat tilted low, a cigar dying between his fingers. His name was Samuel Kane, a rancher with a scarred face, broad shoulders, and a reputation that made weaker men step aside. He was the kind of man women whispered about, and men cursed in silence. His eyes found the woman and the girl. And for the first time in a long while, Samuel felt something stir deep inside, something that wasn't hunger for whiskey, or thirst for blood, or the cold emptiness of another lonely night. The girl clutched tighter at her mother's dress, her little voice trembling. "Ma, I'm cold," the woman whispered back, brushing dirt from her daughter's cheek. "Just a little longer, sweetheart. Just a little longer." Samuel pushed off the post, his boots crunching against the ground as he walked toward them. The crowd thinned, people pretending not to notice. When he reached them, his voice came low, steady, like a storm hiding under calm skies. "You two look like you don't belong here." The woman lifted her eyes, meeting his stare. There was strength in her, but also a plea, a desperate one she tried to hide. "We don't," she answered softly. "But my daughter needs a home, and I just need a chance." Samuel's jaw tightened. He glanced down at the girl, then back at the woman. And with a crooked half-smile, rough as gravel, he said, "Well, lady, maybe we can help each other. Your daughter needs a home." His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "And my bed needs you." The woman froze, torn between fear and the faintest flicker of something else. The girl, too young to understand, only held tighter to her mother's hand. The air between them grew heavy, charged, like the sky before lightning. And just like that, the story began. The night was colder than the day had promised. Out on the edge of town, where the lantern light of the saloon faded into shadows, Samuel Kane led the woman and her daughter toward his horse. The girl, quiet and cautious, looked up at him with eyes that studied every movement. Samuel didn't speak much, but the silence was heavy with unasked questions. Finally, the woman broke it. "My name is Claire," she said, her voice almost trembling, as if she hadn't spoken it aloud to anyone in days. "And this is Emily." Samuel gave a slow nod, tipping his hat to the child. "Samuel, folks call me Kane." The girl's tiny voice pierced the stillness. "Are you a bad man, Mr. Kane?" Samuel stopped walking. For a moment his jaw clenched, the question digging deeper than the child could ever know. His shadow stretched long across the dirt, and when he finally answered, his voice was rough but honest. "I've done bad things, but tonight, I reckon I'm trying to be better." Emily blinked at him, then tightened her grip on her mother's hand. Claire said nothing, but inside her chest, her heart beat faster. They reached the horse, a strong bay gelding dusted with scars of old battles. Samuel lifted the girl up onto the saddle with surprising gentleness, then helped Claire climb up behind. He mounted last, his arms steadying both of them as the horse began its slow journey into the dark. The ride was long, silent, broken only by the sound of hooves and the occasional cry of a coyote in the distance. The desert stretched wide under a sky littered with stars, endless and merciless. At last, after miles of dust and silence, the outline of a ranch came into view. The wooden fence was crooked, the barn weather-beaten, and the house small but standing proud against the wind. It wasn't much, but it was a place that still breathed, a place that hadn't yet given up. "This is it," Samuel said quietly as they approached. Kane Ranch. Don't look like much, but it'll keep the cold out. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and faint tobacco. The fireplace was empty, but Samuel crouched down, struck a match, and soon flames flickered to life, chasing the shadows back. Emily's eyes widened at the firelight, and for the first time that night she smiled. A small, fragile smile that carried more weight than words. Claire lowered herself into the old rocking chair, exhaustion carving deep lines into her face. She had been carrying too much for too long, Samuel noticed. He said nothing, only poured her a glass of water and handed it over. "Why are you helping us?" she asked, her voice trembling. Samuel leaned against the mantel, staring into the flames. "'Cause I know what it's like to need someone and have nobody show up. Out here, most folks turn their heads. I'm tired of turning mine." Silence lingered again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was fragile, almost intimate. Claire lowered her gaze, not sure whether to trust him. Hours passed, and Emily fell asleep curled up on a blanket by the fire. Claire tried to fight it, but her eyes grew heavy too. Samuel pulled a quilt from the bed and draped it over her shoulders. When her eyes fluttered open again, she whispered, half dreaming, "You said your bed needed me." "What did you mean?" Samuel froze, the firelight cutting sharp lines across his scarred face. For a moment he considered lying, softening his words. But the West was no place for lies. "I meant what I said," he answered low. "But it ain't just about a bed. A man gets tired of empty nights, Claire. Tired of silence. Maybe I was looking for more than I knew." Her breath caught in her throat. Part of her wanted to recoil, but another part, buried deep, ached for the same thing: warmth, safety, a place to stop running. The fire crackled. Outside, the desert wind howled against the shutters, as if testing the walls that held them inside. And in that small house on the edge of nowhere, 3 broken souls shared the same roof, the same silence, the same fragile chance at something that looked almost like hope. But hope in the Wild West was dangerous. And before the night was through, shadows would stir outside the ranch, shadows that carried memories of Samuel's past, and the promise that peace never lasted long. Morning broke slow across Kane Ranch, painting the horizon in shades of gold and red. The sun pushed back the cold of the night, but the air still held that sharp edge that made a body tighten its coat before stepping outside. Samuel was already awake, as always. He moved with the rhythm of a man who had lived too long by the clock of the land, feeding stock, checking fences, hauling water from the well. His hands were calloused, his back broad, his face carved by sun and storms. From the doorway, Claire watched him. She hadn't meant to stare, but there was something about the way he carried himself, every movement deliberate, without waste. He was a man who had been broken and rebuilt too many times to count, but the pieces still held together somehow. Emily clung to her mother's dress, her little eyes curious as she whispered, "Ma, is he gonna let us stay?" Claire stroked her daughter's hair, whispering back, "I don't know, sweetheart. But for now, we have a roof over our heads." The girl nodded, though her gaze stayed fixed on Samuel, as if trying to measure whether this scarred rancher was a friend or another storm passing through. By midday, Samuel had them helping with small chores. Emily gathered eggs from the coop, her laughter ringing out when the hens clucked indignantly at her. Claire, though awkward at first, helped patch a section of the fence. Samuel corrected her grip on the hammer, his large hand closing gently over hers. She froze, feeling the warmth of his skin, the steadiness of his hold. For a fleeting moment the world seemed to pause. Just the sound of their breaths, the hammer still between their fingers, and the faint beat of a heart remembering what it meant to be near someone. "You're not half bad," he muttered. Releasing her hand, his tone rough but not unkind. Claire smiled faintly, a smile she hadn't worn in years. That night, the 3 of them sat by the fire again. Samuel told stories, not many, not deep, but enough. Tales of cattle drives, of long winters, of a time when the world seemed younger. Emily listened with wide eyes, and at one point leaned against his arm without realizing it. Samuel stiffened at first, unused to the touch of a child, but slowly relaxed, allowing the weight to rest against him. Claire saw it, her heart tightening in ways she couldn't explain. But peace in the Wild West was a fragile thing. The next evening, as Samuel returned from the far pasture, he spotted something in the dirt near the main road. A set of tracks, fresh, too many to belong to passing travelers. Boot prints, horse hooves, men moving together. His chest tightened. That night, after Emily was asleep, Claire noticed his silence. He sat at the table, cleaning his revolver with deliberate care, the firelight glinting off the barrel. "You're expecting trouble," she said softly. Samuel didn't look up. "Trouble's got a way of finding me whether I expect it or not." She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "What kind of trouble?" He paused, then finally met her eyes. The weight in his gaze was heavy, burdened with years she didn't yet understand. "Men I wronged. Men who want what I took. Out here, sins don't get buried easy. Sometimes they ride back years later with a gun in their hand." Claire's breath caught. "And us? What happens to us if they come?" Samuel slid the cylinder back into place, the click sharp in the silence. His voice was low, steady, but filled with a dark promise. "They'll have to go through me first." For a moment, neither spoke. The fire cracked. The desert wind howled against the shutters, and beneath it all, the faint echo of hoofbeats, real or imagined, haunted the night. Later, when Claire lay in bed beside her sleeping daughter, she stared at the ceiling, her mind restless. Samuel's words lingered in her chest, tangled with fear. And something else. He was dangerous, yes. But in his danger, there was also protection. In his darkness, a spark of something she hadn't known in years. A chance at belonging. Outside, Samuel stood alone on the porch, hat low, rifle in hand, eyes fixed on the horizon. He knew they would come. Sooner or later, men always came, and when they did, the fragile piece of Kane Ranch would shatter. But until then, he would fight like hell to keep it. The days rolled on slowly at Kane Ranch, each one carrying with it the rhythm of a fragile piece. For the first time in a long while, Claire and Emily felt the weight of survival ease from their shoulders, if only slightly. There was still work to be done, still nights when the howling wind made them clutch the blankets tighter. But within those walls they found something rare on the frontier, a sense of belonging. Emily bloomed in ways Claire had almost forgotten she could. She laughed when the chickens chased her across the yard, squealed when Samuel lifted her high onto the horse, and asked endless questions about the land, the sky, and the strange scars that crossed Samuel's knuckles. The ranch, though small and battered by years of dust and storms, became a playground, a classroom, a home. For Claire, the adjustment came harder. She had spent too long carrying burdens alone, too long trusting no one but herself. Yet Samuel, in his rough silence, made her feel both uneasy and safe. He didn't shower her with words, but his actions, steady, deliberate, spoke louder than any declaration. When he repaired the leaky roof before the rains, when he cut extra firewood knowing the nights were colder now, when he set a plate of food in front of her without asking if she was hungry, and at night, when Emily had fallen asleep, there were moments between them that felt almost too fragile to name. A glance held longer than it should, a brush of fingers when passing a cup, a silence shared, not empty, but heavy with something unspoken. One night, as the firelight flickered low, Claire broke the silence. "You said once that you've done bad things, Samuel." "Things that might bring men here." Samuel stared into the flames, his jaw tight. "That's the truth. Then why let us stay?" Her voice wavered, caught between fear and gratitude. His eyes lifted to hers, steady, piercing. "Because I know what it's like to need someone and find no one standing there. And maybe, I'm tired of empty nights." The words struck her deeper than she expected. She wanted to turn away to shield herself, but she couldn't. Instead, she whispered, "And if those men come?" Samuel's voice dropped, quiet as a prayer but sharp as a blade. "Then they'll find a man worth fearing, and a woman worth dying for." Her breath caught, her chest tightening with something she hadn't let herself feel in years. Trust. Dangerous, intoxicating trust. The calm lasted 3 more days. 3 days of routine, of quiet laughter, of the faint illusion that life had given them a reprieve. On the fourth night, the illusion shattered. It began with the dogs barking, low and furious, their hackles raised toward the darkness beyond the fence. Samuel was already at the door, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the horizon. The moon hung full, painting the land silver, and out there, just beyond the reach of the lantern light, shadows moved. Riders. He counted at least 6, maybe more. Their silhouettes jagged against the night sky, their horses restless, their presence heavy with threat. Claire appeared behind him, clutching Emily close. Her eyes widened in fear. "Samuel!" He didn't turn. His voice was steady, iron forged in fire. "Get her inside. Bolt the door. No matter what you hear, don't open it." "Samuel," he finally turned, his gaze locking with hers. For the first time, his mask slipped, and beneath the scars and the grit, there was something raw, something painfully human. "I told you they'd come, and now they're here." Claire's lips trembled, her voice barely a whisper. "Will you come back?" Samuel slid a bullet into the chamber, the metallic click sharp in the silence. "I always come back." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But deep down, she knew the West rarely allowed promises like that to be kept. The riders drew closer, their laughter carried on the wind, cruel and sharp. Samuel stepped onto the porch, rifle raised, his figure cut against the moonlight. "Evening, Kane," a voice called from the dark, slick with mockery. "Heard tell you've been playing house out here." "Ain't like you to settle down with strays." Samuel's grip tightened on the rifle. "State your business." The men fanned out, circling like wolves. The leader stepped forward, his face revealed under the brim of his hat. A scar ran from his temple to his jaw, old but ugly. His grin was worse. "You took something from us years back. Gold, blood, doesn't much matter. We're here to take it back, and maybe burn this pretty little ranch of yours while we're at it." Samuel's voice was ice. "You'll find I'm not so easy to rob," the leader chuckled. "And what about the woman, the girl? Word is you got yourself a new family. Be a shame if anything happened to him." Samuel's eyes darkened, his whole body shifting from steady to lethal. "You touch them," he said low, "and not even the devil himself will save you." The standoff stretched, tension drawn tight as a noose. Inside the house, Claire held Emily against her chest, whispering prayers into the girl's hair, every heartbeat thundering in her ears. Through the shutters, she caught glimpses of the men, of Samuel's lone figure standing against them all. And in that moment, she realized something terrifyingly clear. If Samuel fell tonight, she and Emily would be lost. Outside, the leader spat into the dirt, his grin fading into something colder. "Then I reckon we'll test that promise." And with a sharp motion of his hand, the men drew their weapons. The night exploded with the crack of gunfire. The first shot split the night wide open. Echoes rolled across the land like thunder, startling the horses, shaking the very air. Kane Ranch, which had stood quiet under the silver of the moon, became a battlefield in an instant. Samuel Kane didn't flinch. His rifle roared, dropping the first rider from his saddle before the man could even fire a second time. The body hit the dirt with a sickening thud, the horse bolting into the night. The others answered with fury. Bullets tore through the wooden posts, splinters flying across the porch. Samuel ducked, rolled, and fired again, his movements sharp, practiced, merciless. He was a man who had lived his life under fire, and every muscle remembered its place in the storm. Inside the house, Claire clutched Emily tighter, dragging her to the corner furthest from the windows. The girl whimpered, burying her face in her mother's dress, while Claire's own heart hammered so loud she thought the gunman outside could hear it. "Stay down." "Baby," she whispered, stroking her daughter's hair with trembling hands. "Stay down, no matter what." Outside, Samuel emptied the rifle and swung it aside, drawing his revolver in a single motion. A rider charged the porch, pistol raised, teeth bared in a snarl. Samuel's shot punched through his chest, the man's scream cut short as he fell. But there were too many. Too fast, too angry. A bullet grazed Samuel's shoulder, spinning him back, heat and blood burning down his arm. He gritted his teeth, steadying himself against the porch post, breath sharp but unbroken. The leader's voice rang out over the chaos. "Kane, you can't win this. You stole from us, and tonight we take it all back." Woman, child, ranch, everything. Samuel's reply was a growl from deep in his chest. "You can have my land when you bury me under it." And with that, he stepped off the porch, into the open yard, where the moonlight revealed him in full. Blood soaking his sleeve, jaw clenched, eyes burning with a fury older than any feud. The outlaws circled, firing, reloading, shouting curses. Samuel moved among them like a storm given flesh, each shot deliberate, each strike fueled by the kind of rage only a man with something to protect could summon. Claire couldn't stay hidden. Her instincts screamed at her to shield Emily, but her heart drove her to the window. Through the cracks in the shutters she saw Samuel, outnumbered, bleeding but unyielding. A lone figure holding back the darkness with nothing but steel and stubbornness. Tears blurred her vision. She whispered prayers she hadn't spoken in years. "God, don't take him." "Not now. Not when we finally found someone." 2 more riders fell. One screamed as Samuel's bullet shattered his hand, his gun clattering to the dirt. Another collapsed under the weight of Samuel's knife, the blade flashing in the moonlight. But the leader, scarred, grinning, vengeful, still sat high in the saddle. He watched his men die one by one, but his eyes never left Samuel. At last he dismounted, stepping forward, revolver loose in his hand. His boots crunched the dirt, slow and deliberate, each step dripping with menace. "You always thought yourself better than the rest of us, Kane," he spat. "Taking what wasn't yours, leaving men to rot in the dust. You're no savior. You're no protector. You're just another bastard with blood on his hands." Samuel, panting, wiped blood from his mouth with the back of his sleeve. His voice came low, ragged but fierce. "Maybe I am. But tonight, I'm the bastard standing between you and them," the leader sneered, cocking the hammer. "Then let's finish this." The duel was brutal, short, merciless. 2 men, scarred by history, locked in the kind of fight that legends are born from. Gunfire cracked like lightning, blades flashed like lightning strikes, fists collided like thunder. Dust rose around them, mixing with blood, sweat, and hatred. At last, with a guttural roar, Samuel drove the leader to the ground, his revolver pressed hard against the man's chest. Their eyes locked, one filled with desperation, the other with unyielding fire. "This is for every night I spent alone," Samuel growled. "For every mile I rode with ghosts at my back. And for every ounce of peace you tried to steal from me." The gun roared one final time. Silence fell. The leader's body went limp, his eyes glassy under the moon. The dust settled, the air heavy with smoke and death. Samuel staggered, blood dripping from his arm, his legs unsteady. For a moment, the world spun, and he thought he might collapse. But then, through the haze, he heard it. Samuel! Claire's voice. He turned, just in time to see her rushing from the house, Emily clutched tight against her. She fell to her knees beside him, eyes wide with terror and relief all at once. "You're hurt," she whispered, her hands pressing against his wound, tears falling freely. Samuel gave a half-smile, weak but alive. "Nothing I ain't felt before." Emily reached out with tiny hands touching his face. "Don't leave us, Mr. Kane." And for the first time in years, Samuel felt the weight of a promise he wanted to keep. He placed a bloody hand gently over Emily's, then met Claire's tearful eyes. "I won't," he said simply. Not anymore. The night faded slowly into dawn, the horizon burning gold as the bodies of outlaws lay scattered across the yard. Smoke drifted from the rifle barrels, and the ranch stood battered, but unbroken. Inside the house, Samuel sat by the fire, his wounds wrapped, his arm bound. Claire moved quietly, tending to him, her touch soft yet strong. Emily slept nearby, exhausted, but safe. Samuel watched the flames, his voice low, almost to himself. "Guess this place is more than just a ranch now." "It's a home," Claire's hand brushed his. Her eyes held his steady, unflinching. "And what about your bed, Samuel? Does it still need me?" For the first time in a long, long while, Samuel laughed, hoarse, broken, but real. He leaned closer, his words rough but tender. "It doesn't need you." "I do." And in that fragile dawn, with shadows still lingering outside but warmth flickering within, 3 lost souls became something more than survivors. They became a family.